Good afternoon, traders and investors from around the world. Thanks for tuning in to the closing print. I'm Josh Walter, filling in for Joel Elconin for the week. We're going to have on Christian Fromhertz today, CEO and founder of Tribeca Trade Group. But right before we do, let's take a quick look at the futures. And I have the poll in the chat here. Where do you think the futures are going to finish? Well, specifically the S&P 500. Where do you think it'll finish by the end of the day today here? So as of the last 15-minute candle, we were at 45.90.50. Going to put that in the chat. Let's see if any of you can get on the point there. So we're currently sitting up about 0.8% on the day in the S&Ps, still at 45.90.50. Over to the dollar, we're slightly up on the day by about 0.1%, still under 100 at 99.65 currently. Over to the bonds, those are also up by about 0.1% at 126.22. Crude, that's up over 2% on the day at 75.64. And over to gold, that's also positive on the day. It's not often that we see the dollar up as well as commodities here. So gold is certainly up at 1.2% on the day at 1981 currently. And silver up about 0.9% at 25.25. And over to Bitcoin, that's certainly currently at $29,803, down about 0.3% on the day. So let me stop the screen share. Bring on Christian Fromhertz. Hey, Christian, how are you doing today?
Hey, how's it going? Great to be here.
Great. Yeah. So, I mean, it's been a busy day, hasn't it? We've
Yeah,
a couple
I mean,
earnings.
there's something for everybody, I think, today. We've got some, bank earnings and some really nice price action. Finally, I mean, normally the banks are kind of a little bit dull. Normally it's kind of like a read through. Like, some of these banks are so large that, you hear how their trading business is doing, equity, fixed income, and, the banking side. And normally it's something that kind of like trips them up, in terms of like the business. Sometimes they'll be off to a good start, just like Morgan Stanley was this morning. I think Morgan Stanley was up a couple percent. And, right into the open, it looked like it was kind of giving back the gains. And it's like, okay, that's kind of what it normally does. And then it really kind of took off, after the open. So this is kind of interesting because we really haven't seen this type of price action. And, I guess it begs the question, are the banks through most of the, from what I gathered listening to one of the conference calls is, are they through the worst of it? And that's to me what we're seeing kind of in the price action, that maybe the worst from what they're saying is behind it. And normally when you see stocks kind of move down like this, or how the banks have been acting for the last 3-6 months or so. They've been underperforming so much the relative market, and then you get a little bit of that positive news, and now all of a sudden these things want to kind of come out of the range. So that's interesting and notable to me.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I mean, we've seen just about all the banks today, Bank of America, Charles Schwab, Morgan Stanley. Yeah, a lot of them are actually reporting good earnings. So that's good to see today. It's encouraging. But I heard you yesterday make a comment that you felt like it's the calm before the storm for earnings.
Well,
Is it still
yeah.
calm? Is this the storm?
I
What's
don't know
going on?
what this is today, but I was just kind of I was being a little bit over dramatic, because again,
Uh-huh.
we've got a lot of things this week other than besides earnings, which there are going to be some interesting reports that are going to come out, and we also have option expiration for this on Friday. It's just a
Mhm.
monthly options expiration, and then you also have a VIX expiration too, which might be driving things a little bit too in terms of this grind up that we've been seeing recently. So yeah, I mean, could we get a little, I don't make the predictions about, when we're going to get volatility and so forth, but we are going to get a lot of information, thrown at us. And, and I always find earnings season interesting because you're going to find some names that maybe didn't do so well. And then there's going to be also some names that managed to kind of do very well and in a difficult environment, and you could find your potential leaders for the next quarter too, based on what we see in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely. So when you generally come into earnings season, is that your approach? You're waiting for the leaders to emerge and then, going after the laggards, or what's your approach to a general earnings seasons?
Yeah, I mean, some of which I'm looking for. I'm looking for easy, what I refer to as easy trades, right? Where I'm not actually trading the earnings, but something like Tesla, for example, right? And
Mhm.
you're finally seeing it with Netflix today too. Netflix took a while. I was actually looking for Netflix to kind of start last week, meaning a run into earnings, right? And I would
Mhm.
rather just trade some of these names, even though I missed this 5% move today in Netflix, which is pretty nice. But I would rather just, it goes to the saying, like, bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. And I would rather, take some of these names. I mean, because you just don't know what they're going to say on their earnings call. I mean, you could look at the previous history, because sometimes I do feel like that's a little bit of a clue in terms of like how they manage. There's certain companies like a ServiceNow does very well on earning the day after earnings day. I think that they manage it pretty well. But in regards to the easy trade, I would rather just ride the name into earnings, and then maybe if I really think it could do something more, maybe I may put on like a call spread, so I can only I'll only lose the option premium, betting on a little bit of upside if that's the direction that I pick. But yeah, I mean, like Tesla, like I took some profits yesterday in a trade that I put on last week, and I'm going to try to ride Tesla, until I could either, it depends how greedy I want to be here, but I did take some profits. I did take some
Yeah.
profits yesterday, but I'm not going to hold, my swing trade into that number for tomorrow. So that's what
Okay.
going back to your question. I know that's more of a convoluted answer, but yeah, I like the easy trade. You just, follow the name into earnings, and sometimes you'll get what you're getting with Netflix today, which is an up 5% move. So, everybody always wants to try to figure out what they're going to do, because that is interesting on the earnings date. But if you could take the
Mhm.
5% and put it in your pocket, and do that with a couple other names too. Obviously what's going on with Microsoft too, which I think Microsoft
Yeah.
reports, next week. Now they had an event today, but man, I mean, so you know you could try to guess if you want to and play that game of what they're going to do next week, but that kind of feels like more of like being at a casino, in terms, because it's tough
Yeah.
to know what what they're going to say on their earnings call. Take the money and put it in your pocket. It's up 5% today. Like if you've been kind of sitting long with some of those names, it's a lot, to me, much easier trade. And then by chance, you might get some names that, if they've run up a lot into earnings, they could possibly sell off on that earnings date, just because they're a little bit overcrowded. And then you can kind of look to possibly take advantage of that dip, provided that they didn't really say anything damaging on their earnings call, because you will get overreactions, right? And then that's another part of the trade too, is to say, okay, let's say, Netflix is up to 366, it was up to 366, it was up to 361. But yeah, if it comes back and tests, on my charts, I see support back at 340, right? That's another
Mm.
place to kind of re-add. So, it's the old rinse and repeat type of thing. And like I said, if you want to have a small piece of a trade on, looking in case they say something, really great, clearly that's what happened on, Nvidia's earnings, which has kind of been the catalyst for the for some of this move that we've been seeing.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah, they've been on a rip roaring rally, that's for sure. Do you think I guess just a little bit of a prediction, if you will. Do you think
mhm.
we'll see 500 in Nvidia?
uh where I so these types of things are kind of uh out of my means in terms of predicting that, but I just know that the
Yeah.
trend is strong, and there really hasn't been, since they've had that gap up on earnings, every time that there's been a bit of a dip or a check back, even to like the 20-day moving average, it's been bought. So
Hmm.
500 could be where it goes for like a psychological number, but
Yeah.
I don't think like that's the end game if it does get to 500 and pauses, because I would wait for for a little bit of consolidation once this stops ripping, and look for the next kind of resting spot in an uptrend, because it's also, it has no resistance in front of it. It is continuing to trend, and that is also to me a bit of an easier trade, because you just don't have resistance.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I bring that up just because they were talking about that on the show this morning. But I know you're a bit more of a technicals guy, and so you use your levels, you use market profile. So that's seeing where what a lot of the action is in terms of volume at certain prices.
Right.
Correct? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I use
do you?
yes,
Yeah.
we have an indicator that we use, and basically it will just, it tells you when something is beginning to kind of get out of that range of, around like where the market profile is for a given period, daily, weekly, 1 hour charts. And that gives me a sense is if the name is starting to kind of take that next like higher, very similar. Like I know a lot of people like the Darvis approach, like the Darvis box approach. It's very much similar to that, is when I'm looking for a name begins to kind of take that next leg higher.
Right. Okay. And just a quick question on that. Do you see the market profile levels coinciding with just the pure technical levels, like looking at triple tops, triple bottoms? Do you see that coinciding there?
Well, yes, yeah, so I'll use, other chart pattern, your normal chart patterns that everybody uses. I'll use that in conjunction with what I'm doing. I always want to be, aware of when things like that technically kind of line up. And, I'll also use the moving averages. For example, Nvidia right now is trading above value, so it's in price discovery on all
Mhm.
time frames. So yeah, I'll look, then I'll kind of, if we're beginning to break out like that, and like Nvidia has been doing, because the top of value for the month is all the way down at 435. So yeah, I'll look to see, okay, is something trading, is it, I'll use like the short period moving average, short-term moving averages, the 5 and the 20, to basically tell me if something is just really trending and honoring, as it is right now, and it's as it's been doing now for the last week and a half, the 5 period moving average. And if it breaks back below the 5 period moving average, then I know that maybe there's some sellers present.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, that's good to know. So what else has been going on is the NASDAQ rebalancing. We saw, they didn't exactly make a big announcement about it. Apparently, you had to subscribe to their service in order to
Right.
get that, which is a whole thing. But what are you paying attention to in terms of the NASDAQ rebalance?
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of interesting. They these index providers, I know it kind of came to a shock that for that they did that, because this is a special rebalance. It's not your normal quarterly rebalance. But I know that they
Mhm.
also, like Nasdaq and S&P, same thing for the quarterly rebalances, where they're reweighting all of their indices. And again, that's on a regular schedule. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. If you want the data, you have to subscribe to the data in terms of getting the information about going into the weeds in terms of not just the SPY and the Qs, but looking at like their equally weighted indices and what names they're kicking out of like an XRT or an XHB. So yeah, I mean that's par for the course that these guys, they charge money for this. They don't just give it out to anybody publicly. But and you would think that they would have done it for this time. But in terms of, I really pay attention to when it was announced last weekend, right? There's going to be these things are heavily gamed. And
Mhm.
if we, as soon as that was announced over, not last weekend but the weekend before, the majority of the moves were happened in the first 2 days. And that's generally how it happens with index announcements. The big players out there, there's a portfolio desk at every big brokerage, and they're making those moves very quickly. So I think for the, you might continue to kind of see, some jostling and some volatility on Friday. But I think for the most part, like a lot of those adjustments have been baked in at this point.
Okay, okay. And now, quick question from the chat. Are there any stocks that you're looking to trade in between, now and Friday?
Yeah, I mean, I'm constantly, looking for, as opportunities as I see them. One name that we've been seeing some steady call buying, and I don't really want to add risk on a day like this, where just everything is just sizzling to the upside. But we're seeing something, if I see something really unusual, and if it's a name that's kind of been in consolidation, but GTLB is one name where I added a small position. That's GitLab, and that's been seeing GTLB.
Yeah.
Let me just see how many contracts. So again, we don't normally see option activity in this one. We're seeing some of the monthly 55 calls. We're also seeing the end of the month 728 58 strike calls. So this strikes me as interesting. It is, of course, a tech name. It's a software name, and basically, I have my stop baked in, but I really want to see this stay above 53.60. And as long as it does that, and I give myself a little bit more tolerance, but I'm really looking for a break above there. A couple other things, I
Mhm.
really thought today before the Microsoft news that we were going to see, and which we were seeing, like energy and the banks kind of move. So I will be watching Goldman tomorrow on the back of the Morgan Stanley.
Yep.
I don't have any trade on the second in Goldman, so it may be something that I look at if it sells off a little bit on the earnings. But I also I put on a trade earlier with Generac, which it's not really doing much today. But just figuring with all the heat wave that we're hearing about across the country, right? I think this is a nice way to kind of look at that. I also added a little bit of another industrial name, JCI, which is an industrial name that kind of does HVAC stuff and air conditioning. So I'm playing that
Mhm.
theme a little bit in some names that are not extended here.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. Got some good call outs for trades there and stuff to look at. So I understand you have to go, Christian. So if we can get more time with you, great. But if you have to go, you have to go. Uh,
Yeah, I'm going to get ready for the close. I
yeah.
appreciate it.
All right. Yeah, no problem. Well, thanks for joining us, Christian. And we'll now continue the show with some more stocks and talking to chat here.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks, and have a great rest of your day.
All right, thanks. So I did want to talk about this Microsoft again. The news on this today was it finally released its pricing for its new AI Copilot. I don't know if any of you guys saw this, that they released a video months ago, essentially integrating ChatGPT into Microsoft Office. And the demo basically was, well, I don't want to share too many opinions on this show, as we know this is for informational purposes only, but it's definitely gonna be a big game changer. So they released their pricing on that, which is gonna be $30 a month. Saves, probably gonna save a lot of people a lot of time. So everybody, of course, is bullish on AI. So it broke above this double top right around 351.50. We saw that high yesterday, and then the other high was just a little bit lower back in November of 2021, actually, on the monthlies. And so once it got above there, I mean, there was virtually no resistance, as it's now at all-time highs. I mean, we see a little bit of profit takers into the close here, but that's at least the news on Microsoft. So if there's any stocks that you want me to cover from now until the close, you can go ahead and put those in the chat. But another one, we'll just take a look at Charles Schwab. I know we just touched on it earlier, but that had a really great day. Basically, you can see the gap on the daily here. I'm not going to expand it too much, or else my face will cover it. But on the daily here, you see just the huge gap all the way up, and it basically touched its 200-day moving average. That's at least a strong technical level in there. And that was at 66.95, so pretty much $67. And we haven't seen that since back earlier this year in March. The nearest level on the upside there, once we get above 67, would be all the way up to 73.16, and then below that we have 65.66, although that's a little less significant now. Let's take a look at some of the stocks in the chat. TT, Train Technologies. Looks like this is a little bit of a smaller one, a climate play. Interesting. Well, bit of a lower volume stock on here. It's approaching its highs on the monthly, around that $200. I mean, you always see these significant levels at the psychological even numbers. So whether it's 200 for this or 500 on NVIDIA, you'll see a lot of action happen at these psychological levels. So that's about the next closest. I mean, other than that, you have your monthly high at 201.65. Once it can get above that, I mean, it's going to be a little bit busy here, as you have another couple of highs at 204.23, 207.06 on the monthlies. But if it can start really moving, getting it up to 207, I mean, then you have clear skies. Other than that, you have a busy chart on the daily. The next low that you probably want to hold is 195.60, and that's just yesterday's both open and the low of the day. There's also the 20-day moving average that's on there. Let's take a look at another that's moving today, Sirius XM. I mean, does anybody still listen to satellite radio? I know everybody's just gone to digital as cell phone networks have been getting better, but hey, they're still around. They still have great shows. So they had a good day today. Yeah, just about the largest percent increase since March of back in 2020. We can see that. So looking on the monthlies here, the next target that we're looking for is 589, because we really don't see much. I mean, we have a couple of days here, but actually, you know what? I'm gonna change that. We're currently sitting at 530. So on the daily, we have 539, which looks like we just about topped today, and your next high is actually at 567. So I'd be looking at that for the next high, and then you have both the low of the day pretty close to the psychological level of that $5 even at 492, also coinciding with that 200-day moving average. That's always good to see. Anyway, SiriusXM having a great day. Let's take a look at some of the other earnings that are coming after the market closes today. So we have, of course, Interactive Brokers are, well, at least one of the many brokers out there and preferred platforms. Dennis uses it. I use it. Lots of traders use it. I mean, we have complaints, of course, but we'll see how their profits are doing. So let's see, where are we looking at for levels? So we have a double top actually at 87.09. Yeah, just above 87. So if we start to push above this 86.40 level as we're coming into here to the close here, we're seeing a little bit more volume. But again, as Christian pointed out, you often see these stocks run up into earnings, and so we've certainly seen that today. That's perhaps what the market's anticipating, but we'll see what they have in store with their earnings afterwards. So again, if it holds above this 86.40, 86.50, you're next looking at about 87, 87.09. Once you get up above there, then you have pretty much room till 90, unless we can find something else on the daily chart here. No, you just about have room. Okay, up to at least 89, 90. So again, holding above 86.50, looking to 87 there for at least the next move on Interactive Brokers. Over to another stock releasing earnings after the close today, Western Alliance, WAL. We saw another run up there as people are anticipating that. And of course, this is a bank holding company, so perhaps that's just some sympathy from the banks doing really well today. Let's see what levels we have. The current high for the day is 43.67 and the low is 40.10. So we have a big range on the day. But let's see, if we start to get above 43.67, our next level that we're looking at, well, that was quite a day back in March. Our next level that we're looking at is 55.96, so pretty much $56. And that's at least a lot of room, so you're likely going to see a bit of action to there. But as far as the technicals, though, it has some room to go. So taking another look at some stocks from the chat. Thanks for putting those in there. We got JB Hunt Transport Services. Okay, we're seeing a double top today, at least if it is not going to break this level already heading into the close, right around 185. That was the high a couple days ago. Looks like we already broke that. Let's see what levels we can find. That coincides on the monthly 188, just about with the high today. Are there going to be any levels in between now and then? So we're currently sitting at 188.61. What is next here? We have 188.61. I mean, this isn't too much of a significant level, but your next high that you're looking at is 191.09 on the daily. That's at least been in a channel for the last few months, or almost a year, with a lot of highs right around that 198 level. So really, you're going to get probably a lot of action in between now and then, until you approach that 198 level. Anyway, that's also reporting earnings after the close today. It's a busy week for earnings, that's for sure. It's always fun when there's earnings weeks today, or like this week. And so let's take a quick look at some stocks that are reporting tomorrow morning. Goldman Sachs, of course, Christian mentioned this before, but the high of the day today was 338.03, and your next high, I mean, you have the 200-day right around 340, but that almost coincides with your next high at 341.40. So that's what you're looking for on the upside. Other than that, you might get a little bit of support right around 333, but really that daily candle, the daily action for the day, is going to put a lot more support down in the 327.40 level. Another stock reporting earnings tomorrow morning. Let's see, we have another minute and a half to go here to the close. Let's see if we can take one more ticker here. Okay, so this is a little bit of a high-priced stock, ASML Holding. They're reporting earnings tomorrow morning. It's based in the Netherlands, and has operations around the world, so might see a little bit more market action after hours and before the market opens tomorrow. So we have our high today currently at 759.59, and your next level for resistance is 771.98. And then your next level of support, if it starts going to the other side, is 742.45. We got 30 seconds to go. Let's see if we can get one more stock here. What else is moving? We have Let's see, Mosaic Co. That at least is moving today, and we're currently backing off from the high. The high of the day was 38.16, so that's going to be your next resistance point. And of course, like a lot of stocks today that we're already looking at, the low of the day is going to be, it's already, we're already a fair distance away, but the low of the day is going to be your next level support at 36. And there's the close. So where did we close at in the S&Ps? We're calling it right at 450, 4,586.50. So let's see how many of you got that right in the chat. Of course, I put this poll in the chat for those of you to check out where the S&P futures will close from the time we start the show to the time we finish. So it was at 45.90.50. We closed at 45.86. So we closed slightly down. It looks like only about 22% of you got that right. Most of you are saying it's going to be up, and we still saw a little bit of profit taking into the close. We've been seeing that the last few days, and especially Friday. So anyway, we'll see if that trend continues. And tomorrow we're going to have on Todd Gordon on the closing print. So that'll be a great show. And thanks again for everybody for tuning in. I'm gonna get better at this, of course, still working at it, but we're gonna have a fun week this week. All right, well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you all tomorrow for the closing print at 3:30 with Todd Gordon. We'll see you there.